Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Washington, D.C. It's Legacy, Luis Scott-Vargas versus Christian Calcano. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ben Swartz, and we're underway. Luis kicks things off with a Gitaxian probe. This is going to give him a ton of information about what his opponent's playing and how he can proceed with this game. Ben, what are the game plans from each side here?
Yeah, so Luis Scott-Vargas is on the Epic Storm deck. We've seen a little bit today. The game plan is going to be resolve a bunch of spells, generate a lot of mana, and finally fire off a game-winning Tendrils of Agony due to Storm. Christian Calcano on Rug Delvers is going to try to disrupt Luis's combo and slowly peck away at his life total with creatures like Tarmogoyf, Delver of Secrets, and Nimble Mongoose.
Okay.
That Gitaxian probe there gives Luis Scott-Vargas quite a bit of information about Christian Calcano's hand, namely, right now he doesn't have any counter magic.
Right.
And by tapping out for Delver here, unless he drew a Force of Will, he's not going to be able to have a Force of Will on turn 2, giving Luis this gigantic opening.
And Luis is going to find out right away, Gitaxian probe, to see what he drew. Still no counter magic. He found...
I believe it was a Thought Scour.
Thought Scour, right.
Luis is going to brainstorm here.
So there's a brainstorm for Luis, and this is, you got to breathe a sigh of relief if you're Christian. He's not going off this turn at least.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look that way.
Right. I mean, it's not impossible, of course, but...
I mean, looking at Luis's hand, it does not seem like he'll be able to go off this turn. But Luis does have another Duress in his hand, which he can then use on a later turn to clear away a Force of Will if need be, and then go off. He wants to sculpt a really good hand before he's forced to go off.
Are we going to see an upkeep brainstorm from Christian Calcano here to try to transform that Delver and maybe find some counter magic too?
Yeah, it's very likely. I mean, a really great start for Calcano here, as long as Luis doesn't immediately go off, which he's not going to. Turn 1 Delver is exactly what you're going to see out of the deck, and if you can transform it on the second turn using an upkeep brainstorm, like you said, Marshall, that will really make short work of LSV, put the screws to him. I mean, LSV's
now
already
Luis
at 15.
is getting a black mana source. Are we going to see that brainstorm? Is Luis going to prevent all shenanigans of that type right here? Yeah.
Duress comes down.
And he's going to take the brainstorm. So
Luis knows what he's doing here. I mean, like,
of course,
he doesn't want Calcano to put him on a really quick 5-turn clock or 4-turn clock because of the lightning bolt.
Yeah, brainstorm's huge there, right? I mean, not only flipping the Delver, but also potentially finding counter magic's a big deal. What is Calcano finds the best possible, though.
Blind transform into Force of Will, possibly one of the best cards he could have drawn there, especially now that Luis burned that Duress on the brainstorm.
That's right.
Tarmogoyf comes down for Calcano.
All right, so we've got a game here. Christian Calcano now has a good amount of pressure going on the table. Goyf is a 3/4.
3/4.
Yeah.
Instant sorcery and land.
And let's see what Luis has in line for this turn. Oh, another Duress. So Calcano says, well, I guess I'll just let you take one card, and Force of Will goes away.
Luis is on a 2-turn clock here. So he really needs to go off on the following turn, or that's it.
And Luis knows it as well. The lightning bolt's the difference maker to make up that extra turn, and Luis has seen it. And there's another one, though I don't think that actually changes the clock any.
Yeah, second lightning bolt. If Calcano had a second red source,
right,
would, but he doesn't.
He doesn't have it, right? So Nimble Mongoose resolves, take a bunch of damage.
Okay, what you got, Luis? Draws Tendrils. I don't think that's going to do it. He's got double Infernal Tutor, Tendrils, and Tropical Island.
See Luis sporting some nice new jewelry there. That is, I believe, his Hall of Fame ring.
Yeah. I really cannot see any way for Luis to go off here.
Okay. If that's the case, then game one's going to go to Christian Calcano because, as we know, the Epic Storm, a lot of these Storm decks, a lot of these combo decks do not have slots in their deck, and so it goes. Christian Calcano up one game here, and they're winning in match. Those decks just don't have extra slots to devote to things like creature removal or interaction with, non-counter spells.
Nor would they really want to have those slots.
Right.
They just want to focus all on getting the combo in as quickly as possible, making sure that their opponent can't do what Calcano did there. I mean, what turn was that? Calcano won on like turn 4, right?
Yeah, it was really, really fast.
Turn 1 Delver, flip. Turn 2 Tarmogoyf. Attack. You burned a bunch of life using a fetch land and Gitaxian probes.
Yeah. I mean, it looked pretty good for Luis Scott-Vargas. right up until that Force of Will got turned over. I mean, Luis was able to take care of it. Take a look at Christian Calcano, currently ranked 25th in our top 25 pro rankings. He's a gold pro. He's from the East Coast here up in the New York area.
He won
the
Grand
trip
Prix
down.
Minneapolis last year.
He did. He was playing blue-red at that.
And I think one of the things you don't really see in this slide is his performance at PTs. While he has not gotten on the Sunday stage, he's consistently performed really, really well at Pro Tours.
Had a really solid finish at the last Pro Tour as well, which is really what bumped him up into the top 25 rankings. Luis Scott-Vargas, you know him.
He's a Pro Tour Hall of Famer now.
He is indeed. You saw that from him. Really has reached any height that you can reach in the world of Magic. He has reached it. 21st currently on the top 25 pro rankings. He's a platinum pro. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got 5 Pro Tour top 8s. He's got a win in 2008 playing Elves. He's active in the community. He comes
won
in the
Nice
coverage
Guy Award
booth. Yeah,
for 2012.
He's a favorite. For people that love watching coverage. He's just.
But
yeah.
And both these players are playing for their tournament live. Loser here will, be able to sleep in tomorrow. Maybe catch a quick brunch.
Yep.
Go see some monuments, because we're in Washington D.C. Winner wakes up early, starts the grind super early tomorrow. Let's take a look at these players' sideboards. I saw Luis move to his sideboard and immediately just grab Xantid Swarm and jam those in there. Other than that, you think he's going to bring in the Abrupt Decay?
That's an interesting question. I mean, how defensive do you want to get if you're on Luis Scott-Vargas' side? What are the problem permanents that you're worried about? And, if you look over to Calcano's side, does he leave in some lightning bolts? I mean, those also go to the face, and they are pretty handy at taking out his Xantid Swarm as well. Do you want to bring in, some sideboard stuff to try to disrupt your opponent? Let's see what the players come up with here. Luis has his Xantid Swarm in his opener, but I think he's going to ship this one back. Pretty clearly didn't like that hand. And what does Calcano have? Is he able to keep?
I don't see a land in his hand, but it looks like he's keeping.
He's certainly thinking about it, so there must be one there somewhere. Rug deck can operate quite nicely on 1 or 2 lands, not so much on 0.
Yeah, but his hand seems to be land, Delver, double Force of Will, Ponder, Tarmogoyf. I think that's a pretty fine keep.
163?
163?
Thank you.
We need it pretty soon. I'm going 2 against you. You beat me in Denver and the PTA. Would you be playing the other time? You beat me draft top in Hawaii. Alright, I don't think that's anything, but we'll kind of sanction that. Yeah.
Okay, 6 cards for Luis. A lot of lands, 4 lands in that hand. Is this going to be it for the Hall of Famer? He's going to keep it. Really does not have a very aggressive hand here. And Calcano is going to start again with turn 1 Delver, I have to imagine.
All right, there it is. Not Delver.
Oh, Nimble Mongoose.
Nimble Mongoose.
That's interesting.
And Luis is going to crack his fetch. He waited a turn to do it. It's a little interesting. A lot of these rug decks will run Stifles. I don't think Calcano has them, though. And there's the Xantid Swarm.
Yeah, so Xantid Swarm, really important here. You can see Calcano taking a look at it.
Yeah, with the
0/1 flying creature that when it attacks, not when it deals damage, because it's 0/1, the defending player can't cast spells this turn.
That's right.
So you attack in with it. If your opponent can't kill it immediately, and it's unlikely that your opponent's going to be bringing creature removal against a combo deck, you're free to go off at your leisure.
It looks like is it going to get forced? It is. And so now we see why Nimble Mongoose is sitting on the battlefield and not Delver of Secrets.
Calcano really just didn't want to get rid of that Ponder? Wow,
Yep.
That's an interesting line from him.
I think he's got another Force and another Ponder in his hand too, potentially.
He just peeled a Ponder this turn, so he does have Force, Ponder.
Okay. And here's a red mana source. So clearly he doesn't have a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Would have been an ideal answer to that Xantid Swarm. So
almost definitely boarded those Lightning Bolts out.
Right. All right, here's a Tarmogoyf, and he's going to attack with his Nimble Mongoose. Still just a 1/1 currently. Working its way up towards 3/3, though, with already 3 cards in the yard. This deck can put a lot of cards in the graveyard very quickly.
Yeah,
and
here's a sorcery.
Ponder. Yeah, here's a sorcery. Here's a Ponder. Luis is taking a look. And it looks like he's going to keep these.
Okay. He drew a Taxian Probe. That's going to add to his hand. Gets to see what Calcano's cooking with.
You mentioned it before, Ben. Double Ponder and a Force.
I mean, Luis, again, doesn't really have too much breathing room this game.
He really doesn't.
I mean, Nimble Mongoose is not under threshold yet, but Tarmogoyf's already 4 power.
And here's a main phase Brainstorm that is going to resolve.
Ooh, and those were 3 really good cards.
I saw that.
It was
there was an Infernal
Tutor, and Dark Ritual.
And Dark Ritual, yeah. So a huge Brainstorm here potentially for Luis Scott-Vargas. He is down a game here in round 9. And if he loses this game, he's out of contention. He's done. No day 2 for Luis. So back against the wall, no doubt about it. Calcano in the same exact situation, except for he's up a game. And, the Rug Delver deck wants to put its opponent in this type of situation where it doesn't give it much wiggle room, much time, and it really forces it to do things that it doesn't want to do a lot sooner because of the pressure. And he's got a ton of pressure right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Calcano did last game.
Yes.
Some early creatures are really powerful, put Luis on this super early clock. Luis just bricked off for a couple turns. No chance. I mean, I think Luis's hand here is pretty good. He has to battle through that Force of Will, which is a little problematic, but I'm sure he's done that already today a number of times.
Yes. Yeah. Just a Force of Will is certainly not enough to stop this deck. Currently, though, Force of Will looking pretty good. All right, fetch away, shuffle away a couple of cards off the top there, get another land going. Bad lands for Luis. Is he going to be able to try to make an attempt to go off this turn? Does he even need to?
I mean,
played quite a few cards here.
Maybe he's played 3 spells this turn?
Yeah.
No, he just passes it
pass
back.
the turn. All right. So Calcano sitting with double Ponder and Force of Will. 3 cards in his yard, not quite up to threshold. There's already a sorcery in the graveyard. It's going to change the size of Tarmogoyf.
I think Luis really needs a Lion's Eye Diamond to cement this game. I mean, and something to get rid of the Force of Will, but...
All right, so this is 5 damage. There's a creature in the yard now, so...
Luis has access to a lot of mana, but no way to get the Infernal Tutor Hellbent.
Oh, and Luis Scott-Vargas just immediately passes the turn back. I see that there's a Spell Pierce drawn for Christian Calcano as well from last turn. He just drew a Brainstorm this turn as well. And he's going to play a brainstorm. Luis Scott-Vargas says, yeah, you got it.
I don't see this working out particularly well for Luis.
This could get quite bad for Luis here, as Calcano has not only been able to apply pressure, but also has been able to sculpt a really nice hand here thanks to the ponders and brainstorms. He has a Daze, a Spell Pierce, and a Force of Will in his hand now, so he's just got a full grip of counter magic. Luis has one more turn.
Yeah, but he needs to draw like 5 cards.
Yeah. This is the 6th card in the graveyard.
Luis needed that Xantid Storm to resolve for him to have a chance.
So Christian Calcano looks poised to make day 2 here, unless Luis Scott-Vargas can come up with some seriously big shenanigans. Here's a ponder. This is going to get him to threshold, though it doesn't look like it's going to change the clock unless he finds a bolt here, and we were thinking he might have pulled him out. So,
yeah, but I mean, he's going to be casting these spells anyway. Might as well cast them and get the extra damage in case something happens.
Yeah, he can still cast Daze, Spell Pierce, and Force of Will.
Like if somehow Luis resolved his Xantid Swarm to chump for a turn, this would make it lethal on the following turn regardless.
Right.
The threshold.
So Luis is taking, I think, 8, or he's taking 7.
Sorry, 6, 7. Sorry.
So he's going to go down to 3 life, if I'm counting correctly. He draws a land for the turn. And now he is absolutely forced to try to go off here. So this will be the last turn of this particular game, either with Luis Scott-Vargas winning or losing. It's up to him.
Well, he's going to start things off.
Now that resolved. Okay.
It's not too surprising.
Okay. I mean, he's got...
Calcano's just going to wait and cast a big spell.
He's just going to wait and cast a big spell?
Wait and counter the big spell.
Oh, sure. You mean with his Force of Will?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because he's...
I mean, like Daze and Spell Pierce, that's not going to do anything against the Dark Ritual.
Okay.
And you're only adding to his Storm count in the event that he's just like sandbagging, which he is, tendrils, and hoping you add to his Storm count.
Okay.
I mean, that's what Luis is planning here, is to do is just like get a bunch of rituals, cast them, hope that Calcano doesn't see what's coming, and then cast tendrils that can't be countered.
Okay.
So he cast that Lotus Spell this turn, right? So he's cast 3 spells this turn.
Mm-hmm.
4, 5. He needs 8, so he's like 1 short. He really wanted Calcano to like daze one of his spells.
Okay. That's a Cabal Ritual.
Calcano's thinking, for him, if he Spell Pierces here,
He does Spell Pierce here.
I'm not sure how much mana's floating. What was it? 3, 2, 1, 2. So this would be, yeah. So this is game. I mean, he just sacrifices the Lotus Petal.
Okay, so he pays for it, and then he dazes, and that's going to do it. Christian Calcano is your victor here. He remains at X and 2, currently at 7 and 2, and Luis Scott-Vargas is not going to make day 2 here from Washington, D.C.
That was a really close game.
It was.
But we're going to quickly move over to the other feature match.
Right, where we have Owen Turtenwald, he's on the left, versus Craig Wescoe.
Both these players are 8-0. We saw Owen a little earlier today. He's playing the blue-white-red Delver deck. Craig Wescoe, to the surprise of nobody in this entire room, is playing Death and Taxes.
He is indeed.
Like they always say, there's only 3 certainties in this world: death, taxes, and white weenie.
And especially
and Craig
in
Wescoe
the hands
playing
of Craig Wescoe,
white
yeah.
weenie.
And he looks like he's in a fairly bad shape. Now, we don't actually know life totals here, which are going to be absolutely critical to deciphering what's going on the board, but he's facing 6 power, and that's, generally speaking, a very quick clock. He does now have Ratchet Bomb to take care of Insectal Aberration, but...
Wasteland to get rid of the Caracas.
Which doesn't do anything currently. It's just a non-basic land, but True Name Nemesis is going to be a huge issue. All right, he's going to crack this. We mentioned this earlier when we were talking about True Name Nemesis, that it really tends to dominate these creature-based matchups.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane to have this 3 mana, 3/1 unblockable that, I mean, in Owen's deck, because he's running Stoneforge Mystic and a bunch of equipment, can just equip something quickly to it and, like, GT and get in for a bunch of damage.
That's right. Still don't have life totals up yet, but I think that I think that Owen said he's at 2.
Is that going to be it for this game then? Just has to pray that Craig doesn't attack.
Looks like we have a prediction here. There we go. All right, so Owen's up a game, but he is not anymore. It looks like they're back to even. So Craig Wescoe evens things up, and we're going to see who's going to remain undefeated here on day 1.
And which of these two top 25 ranked players is going to stay undefeated?
That's right.
A lot of the players between the 20 and the 25 mark are here this weekend, all but Li Shi Qian. Craig Wescoe at 20, Luis Scott-Vargas, you just saw at 21st, Owen Turtenwald at 22nd, John Stern at 23rd, and Kirsten Calcano at 25th. Here you get to look at Owen Turtenwald, Platinum Pro, tons of Pro points, who's Player of the Year in 2011.
Yeah.
Top 8 at a Pro Tour.
I got it for you.
Just an amazing all-around player. He's playing against Craig Wescoe, who won Pro Tour Dragon's Maze earlier this year in San Diego. Another Platinum Pro.
3 Pro Tour top 8s to his name. Been around forever.
How many of those was he playing White Weenie in? I know he's playing White Weenie in San Diego, and I know he's playing in both San Diego and Dragon's Maze in San Diego back in 2010.
Yeah, he's playing White-Green in there. And then the other one was Worlds.
Yeah. In which he was playing Tempered Steel, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
So,
I would consider that whitish
yeah.
weenie.
So yeah, 2 of our Magic, top 25 Magic pros in the whole world.
I was talking to Owen at the end of last round, and he told me how absurdly lucky he got in his last match. He was playing against a Belcher deck, sitting at 7-0, and his opponent went turn 1 Blood Moon. Owen has no basics in his deck.
Oh no.
So he went draw, land, go, land, go, land, go, draw, go, draw, go, draw, go, land, go, land, go. When he got to 5 lands, he cast Batterskull.
Just hard cast.
Hard cast Batterskull. His opponent cast a bunch of spells, cast Empty the Warrens for 12. Owen just attacked. You know, chump, 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 chump. His opponent a couple turns later cast Empty the Warrens for 8. Chump, 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 chump.
Goodness.
And then 6 turns later, Owen won.
Wow. He just
The only spell he cast besides Force of Wills was Batterskull.
Unbelievable.
And that was the 3rd game of last round.
All right, well, it's not going to be that simple here, that's for sure.
Let's see what these top-ranked players keep. And Owen starts things off here. Owen's on the blue-white-red Delver deck.
It's a deck that Owen has been championing. He wrote 2 separate articles just about this deck.
And Ponder in turn 1. This deck seems sweet.
This deck seems very sweet, yeah. People compare it to the Rug list quite a bit, but it's really a significantly different deck than that one. And Owen's going to shuffle away what he found. I saw he had a Wear and Tear. Doesn't want it.
Man, just casting Ponder off Tundra.
That's got to feel good.
Yeah, it's...
All right, Owen's going to draw a fresh card, and it's a Brainstorm. Ships a turn back. And here's an Aether Vial. That's got to be one of the key starts there for Craig Wescoe, and indeed it is, as Owen says, no sir, daze that.
That's exactly what Craig Wescoe wants to see on turn 1. He has a second one in his hand, so he can attempt to do it
on the
following turn.
He's going to Owen Turtenwald is just going to play that Tundra again and pass the turn back. That is going to give an opening here for Craig Wescoe. First off, to Wasteland the Tundra.
Huge.
And then he can now clear the path potentially.
Because Owen had a Daze in his hand. Daze doesn't do anything
Wow.
here. So that's just gigantic in this game because it's going to allow Craig to cast this endless stream of creatures that are uncounterable.
That's right, and not only uncounterable, but there's some pretty nice timing tricks that you can get out of an Aether Vial as well.
Yeah, Sarah Avenger you can cast before you're allowed to. You're not
That's
actually
right.
casting it; just enters the battlefield.
That's right, and there's a lot of not obvious tricks that you can get out of it too. Ooh, Craig Wescoe is going to start with Thalia, Guardian of Thraven, and Owen. Is he forced to daze this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to put him too far behind if he doesn't daze the Thalia. He's going to be one turn behind when he's already one turn behind because of the daze.
Right.
Yeah, so he's going to daze and float a mana, and then very, very likely cast Brainstorm before that mana disappears.
Craig's got Flicker Wisp in the deck, Sarah Avenger, which you mentioned. Another one that can get people is Aven Mind Sensor off of Aether Vial.
A little trick for players who aren't so experienced in Legacy format. Just do it when you, in response to cracking a fetch land, about to grab your deck. No, how does 4 cards sound? I love this.
Hope you get there.
I love this, the permanentless Brainstorm. Owen floated a mana off of the Tundra that he dazed with. I mean, Owen's hand is good. It's not amazing, but it's also not necessarily good enough to beat what Craig has.
Yeah, the problem is he's just significantly behind on board, right? He's got enough answers and awesome stuff in his hand to get out of it, but... All right, you see one little thing that you'll see experienced Vial players do. Craig activates it, puts the ability on the stack, and then doesn't put anything in. He just wants to see if Owen maybe wants to, use a Stifle or something like that on it.
Yeah,
it's a good habit.
Wording on Aether Vial is very weird. It says, activate Aether Vial, you may put a creature into play with converted mana cost equal to. So you don't have to show which creature you want to put into play until after the ability's resolved. So you tap it first. Your opponent can stifle it. If they stifle it, you don't lose anything.
Right.
And once they let it resolve, you show them what creature you're going to put into play.
Right, and in this case, it wasn't any creature. But you can see that Craig Wescoe has some pretty nice chains upcoming here. He gets the Violin, a Stoneforge Mystic, and then later he's going also to get to use the Stoneforge Mystic's ability to, now it's slaying Violin, a Batterskull.
Yeah.
That's where we get that term.
Wasteland takes out Wasteland.
So Owen Turtenwald still being very aggressive with his Wastelands here.
Craig's going to force Owen to crack that Polluted Delta. In Legacy, it's really important to keep your fetch lands around because they work so well with Brainstorm. Being able to shuffle after Brainstorm really makes the difference between a good Brainstorm and just a terrible Brainstorm.
Yeah, that's a thing that we don't normally have to quantify in Magic is how many shuffles do I get, right? But like we just saw, Craig took a shuffle away, from Owen. I mean, it didn't cost him anything to do it, but that was what Owen lost on that as we see Owen plays Swords to Plowshares on the Stoneforge Mystic. So not bad. That Batterskull is sufficiently stranded at the moment.
And Craig's actually...
He's out of lands.
Out of lands, yeah.
All right, so he's going to be leaning on this Aether Vial pretty hard here, but it looks like he's got a lot of great options. Is he going to change course here and just start putting in, the Sarah Avengers instead of going for this Stoneforge Mystic plan?
I mean, that's the more aggressive of the two plans. He's got a little bit more inevitability if he just goes with Stoneforge Mystic and hopes to peel a land so he can get out of his Batterskull, and he looks like he drew a Sword of War and Peace or Fire and Ice. I think that he's probably just going to jam out the Sarah Avenger first.
Start getting down
wait
to
until
business.
his land comes. He's not going to up the Vial until he draws a Flicker Wisp.
Okay.
I mean, it's really awesome when you can get Vial going with Flicker Wisp.
I mean, he's got his... I mean, right now Owen is scrambling, right? He's trying to rebuild his permanence on board.
I mean, from Owen's position, if Craig just didn't have a bunch of cards in hand, you would seem to be in a really good position, right? I mean, sure, he's down on lands, but he's been able to deal with most of the threats. I mean, now Craig is just getting out every equipment in his deck. The second Stoneforge Mystic of Craig's gets Sword Supply Shares again by Owen. Owen really just wants to keep him off from landing that Batter Skull. It's going to be so important in this match.
There's a Rishadan port there for Craig Wescoe, so it looks like he wants to use this mana. He's just going to take this moment to, well, attempt to resolve an Umezawa's Jitte here. There's a Daze in hand, though, for Owen, right?
Oh, yeah. Owen's considering dazing the Jitte here, trying to figure out if it's worth setting himself back a turn.
Another turn.
To get rid of it. He has that True Name Nemesis that he's been trying to get out for a while now, but Jitte is going to just be so important against Owen's creatures. He's going to daze it here.
So even though Owen's been pretty far behind, it feels like, Craig needs to start applying some pressure here, so he's going to start Aether Vialing at some point.
So Ponder from Owen.
I mean, Owen's had some very productive turns here, right?
Yeah.
Ponders and getting ahead and keeping Craig Wescoe from really having anything on the battlefield here. But Owen certainly hasn't been able to advance his own game plan much as far as, getting Craig Wescoe dead. And Craig still has like 5 cards in hand with an active Aether Vial and a couple of lands. You got to figure that favors Craig, at least at this point.
Yeah, but Owen has effectively gotten to the mid game.
Mm-hmm.
And has treaded water until the mid game, but his deck's so much more powerful against Death and Taxes in the mid game and late game.
I mean, True Name Nemesis, anybody?
Yeah. So if he can, I'm not saying that it's really good for him to continually tread water here, but the fact that he's been able to sculpt his hand for a couple of turns, keep Craig off of mounting a really early army is really important.
All right, so Delver of Secrets for Owen Turtenwald, end step activation of Aether Vial brings the Serra Avenger into play. So Craig Wescoe is now in business. Going to start hitting for 3 every turn. And there's a Sword of Fire and Ice that you mentioned a minute ago, Ben. If that thing is allowed to stay on the battlefield, which it won't be.
There's a wear and tear.
Wear and tear, yeah. Especially, so there's a wear and tear there to do it, but that would just completely take over the whole game.
This situation would be awesome for Owen if Craig didn't have that Serra Avenger. He'd be able to, tread water and beat down for 3 a turn, get himself in a really good position if he ever top-decked a Stoneforge Mystic or one of his equipment. But now, he's not going to be able to bring the beats in. He's going to have to continually take 3 damage, and he's going to have to deal with each of these equipments as soon as they come down, as soon as Craig draws the land that he needs.
Yeah, so right now Owen is digging for a red mana source here with his Brainstorm.
He found a Polluted Delta, so that should allow him to do it.
All right, but he is going to make sure that he waits until Craig Wescoe spends some mana and goes for an equip before he fires that off.
Yeah. And if Craig doesn't go for an equip, basically didn't lose anything. He just cast it in at a turn.
And he can just trade the Insectal Aberration for the Serra Avenger, right?
Yeah.
So he's got good game plan either way here.
A 4th land for Craig Wescoe in the form of Cavernous Souls. 1 land away from just landing that Batter Skull. But yeah, he's going to equip here, and he's going to wait for Craig to attack so he can force the trade.
That's right. So here's a fetch land. Okay, so Craig Wescoe, though, has 2 Swords of Plowshares in his hand, so I think he'll probably fire one off here before blocks, just to save his Serra Avenger.
Yeah, after the wear and tear, before blocks.
That's what I mean, yeah, because we know the wear and tear is incoming, so there it is.
100%. Owen honestly doesn't have all that many targets or good targets for Swords of Plowshares. There's Stoneforge Mystic. That's not all that great, but basically just the 4 Delvers in Owen's deck. And if Owen brought in Grim Lavamancer, which he likely did, those would be good targets too.
Okay. So, Sword down, Wear and Tear down, Delver of Secrets out in the field somewhere, and Serra Avenger's going to hit for 3. And there it is, True Name Nemesis. But unfortunately for that, there is a flying Serra Avenger there. So if this ends up becoming a race, it's 3 versus 3, and that True Name Nemesis isn't going to be able to block.
Yeah, Owen needs to draw either one of his good equipments, either Umezawa's Chite or Sword of Feast and Famine, if he really wants to make that 3-1 protection from Craig Wescoe creature a force to be reckoned with.
Here's a Flicker Wisp.
That's going to allow Craig to flicker out a Plains.
And he's going to use his Rishadan Port here. Yeah, during your upkeep, tap down your Volcanic Island. Sure. What was that?
That was
Another
a true name Nemesis. That was
Okay.
really big, that Rishadan Port activation.
And there's a Delver of Secrets, and things are starting to look grim for Owen Turtenwald here as Craig Wescoe has 6 power in the air now.
And that second Sword Supply shares.
That's right. Owen Turtenwald all the way down to 10 life. Both of these players are undefeated, so they will be here for day 2 regardless of the outcome of this match, but there's a big gap between going into day 2 undefeated versus having a loss. Caracas for Craig Wescoe doesn't do a ton in this matchup, I don't think, but
the fifth
there's a
land's really
Batterskull.
important.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the writing's on the wall here for Owen.
He must Force of Will. He's going to use Force of Will, especially he's got the true name Nemesis, which isn't really going to do it here. And there's a Lightning Bolt.
So if Craig didn't have that Sword Supply shares in hand,
Yes.
that would be enough to save Owen for a turn, or a bunch of turns rather.
It would have potentially just evened this up, but Craig does. Wow, there's a Flicker Wisp as well.
Yeah, so Craig has this one multiple different ways. He needs to make sure he doesn't make an error here.
Yeah, and he's just going to get rid of that, and that's going to do it. Craig Wescoe defeats Owen Turtenwald to remain undefeated, 9-0 here at Grand Prix Washington, D.C. Get a look at the feature match here. You see Blake Rasmussen there writing up the articles that you can read on dailymtg.com for our written text coverage. There's